This week on Quality Digest Live, we chat with Mohan Panandurai about the importance of analytics to improve quality in the supply chain.
Plus, what exactly is business continuity management and why is it important? We'll tell you when we come back.
This week's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Olympus, specializing in easy-to-use microimaging and metrology systems that provide the measurement and images you need.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for February 21st, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
Yes, you are. And I'm Quality Digest editor-in-chief, Dirk Ducharme. Well, according to an MIT Sloan blog, How to Manage Effectively in the Face of Risk, new studies show that the best way to manage an organization in the face of risk is to build in resiliency. That would actually seem to make sense.
Yeah.
Folks at MIT.
Yeah.
Okay. And by resiliency, we mean the ability to withstand, recover from, and maintain function through a crisis. The blog points out that to manage risk effectively, resiliency must be built into the entire interrelated system of an organization. So not just bits and pieces, but you have to have it throughout the entire organization. MIT Sloan professor Donald Lessard states that risk management requires systematic management of risks that are generated within each link in the chain, and more importantly, in the interfaces among links in order to limit disruptions and their propagation throughout the system. So our friend, the systems approach is what you want to do when you are looking at risk mitigation, risk management, resiliency, and so forth. So what are some of the things to think about when building in resiliency? Well, there was a great article in Forbes last year by Dory Clark on Andrew Zolli. Andrew Zolli is the co-author with Anne-Marie Healy of Resilience, Why Things Bounce Back. And here are some of Zolli's suggestions on how to build a resilient company. And keep in mind that a lot of what we talk about in resiliency is agility. It's the ability to react quickly, because that's part of what you've got to do in risk management and disaster recovery and so forth. Now, Zolli mentioned several things, but these three in particular caught my eye. First of all, he says you have to embrace cognitive diversity. And what he means by that is you need to have people with the same values but different thinking styles, people who look at problems from different perspectives. And this makes a lot of sense if you think about it. We all have a different types of personalities have different way of approaching problems. You have, kind of the artist, dreamer, kind of, touchy-feely approach. You might have, the engineering approach who looks at problems very down at the nitty-gritty. You have those who always see kind of the big view. And you need all those different perspectives because it's good to look at a problem from different perspectives, particularly if you all have the same goal and the same values. You're all trying to do the same thing, but that different perspective really helps you to solve problems much quicker. The other thing you need to do, says Zolli, is embrace your middle managers. Okay, Zolli didn't exactly say embrace or hug your middle managers, but he did say that when things go wrong, it's often people in the middle who determine an organization's resilience. It's rarely the square-jawed visionary CEO, says Zolli, or the street activist that makes things work together. It's the middle that gets things done. And this all makes us feel good. The much maligned middle manager, right? The stuff of Dilbert. But what he's saying is that these really are, the middle managers very often are the workhorse. They're not at the top of the CEO who isn't necessarily in the nitty-gritty, and they aren't the street activist who is important because these are the guys who maybe raise issues to the forefront. The activist gets things visibility, but they aren't necessarily the ones who get done. It's the middle managers who get things done, according to Zolli, and so you want to make sure that they are part of the process. And finally, he says, don't maximize efficiency. For many systems, peak efficiency brings with it peak fragility, according to Zolli. Things like carrying insurance and having redundant systems impose carrying costs on an organization. They make the system less than perfectly efficient, that's true, but much safer when things go wrong. So you have to look at the trade-offs between resiliency and recovery, and it's just a matter of making the right choices, says Zoli. So again, what he's talking about here is efficiency is good, but sometimes you can be so lean that you don't have any resources available to react, and to react quickly in the case of an emergency or something that requires perhaps redundancy in a system.
Yeah, and this is going to connect really well to the story that I'm going to be covering on the show here in about 10 or 15 minutes on business continuity management and ISO 22301, which really plays into a lot of the themes that Zoli's talking about in that piece, and it's going to be underscored in the piece that I'm going to be talking about here a little later in the show, so keep a lookout for that. Well, also in the news this week, the Business 901 blog recently posted a podcast titled Gaining New Insights into the Sales Process, a partial transcription of which we ran in last Wednesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. This interview was a conversation between site host Joe Dager, a longtime business executive, writer, speaker, and lean practitioner, and Linda Richardson, author of the new book, Changing the Sales Conversation, Connect, Collaborate, and Close. Now, to me, the most interesting part of this conversation was their focus on the term insight. Both Dager and Richardson used the word repeatedly, and it is the key differentiator in the sales process today. See, it's no longer enough to know what your company has to offer, how it can help the customer within a specific environment, and how it compares to competitive offerings. Now, one needs the insight into how all those inputs affect a buying decision. Output not only today, but into the future as well. That level of insight, that degree of understanding from the perspective of the customer, not only as to what is happening, but as to what will happen, really is the thing that sets great salespeople and great sales organizations apart from the pack. Now, from a lean perspective, and this is my opinion now, the greatest means of sales improvement comes from, again, our old friend,
systems
thinking, and that's exactly what it comes down to is having that perspective. And for a long time, in this realm, salespeople have been left as not only the key point of contact between customer and company, but also as the data collector, data analyzer, traffic cop, customer service rep, and everything in between. But great organizations now more than ever realize that it takes a village to sell today. And those are not actually my words; they're directly from Linda Richardson's words directly from this podcast. In the business world of ours today, awash with data, the lean salesperson within the lean sales organization will apply, will kind of use 5S. They'll apply kind of a 5S to the structure of data. Visibility into the key bits of information, those vital few data points that truly provide insight, real insight to customers, is the name of the game. And that's how any of us in the sales game can best apply a lean philosophy to our calling. In other words, I mean, use everything that we know as quality professionals. If you're a quality professional, you're also touch on the lean sales process, or you touch on the sales process. Use those skills. Look at it from a systems perspective. Look at it. Visualize it. Use visuality to understand it and separate out those data points. Because from that, cult from that comes to that insight that they're talking about here. And the insight is not just an understanding of what a company is doing. You don't look at somebody's website for 5 minutes and understand that. You're deeply enmeshed in your industry. You know what's going on. You know what they're doing, what their competitors are doing, what you're doing, what your competitors are doing in the face of your customers. And you also know through all that maybe what's going to happen. And you can provide some real insight. If you can do that, you're going to win, because you're going to be better probably than most salespeople, most of your peers in that industry.
Let me ask you something. I mean, you're the publisher of Quality Digest, but you're also a sales guy.
Yeah.
Did you get something out of this?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Because I think that the understanding that it's got to connect with everything else, and that we can't do it alone. You know, I mean, you and your team, the editorial team, and everybody in our organization helps with understanding what we're doing as an organization and how it connects to our advertisers, and how our content equals better results for the advertisers and for the readers too. So from my perspective, yeah, looking at it as a system was enlightening to think, well, it's not just picking up the phone and making a call and knowing what that customer, what that advertiser is doing. It's understanding the whole totality of how it connects with what we do and can do in the future, and what it means for that customer. That insight, I think, is the key thing. So yeah, I did get a lot of that. So quickly, for more information on all the pieces that Dirk and I are going to be covering, including this one, just click on the story links right below the video player right down there.
All right. Well, you know, we hear a lot of talk about the supply chain. And traditionally, monitoring of your supply chain might rely on a variety of software systems and internal processes that don't, unfortunately, all communicate with each other. And the result is that your company may be missing data that could reduce risks to the supply chain, reduce risk to the company, or ensure product safety. So companies need to have insight into quality processes across the entire supply chain. So enterprise quality management software is one way to provide this insight. You know, we've been talking about EQMS, enterprise quality management software, for quite a while, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more today. So with us today via Skype is Mohan Pandurai, Industry Solution Director at Sparta Systems. Hi, Mohan.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Oh, pretty good. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, before we get started, can you give us just a brief, really brief description of what enterprise quality management software is?
Sure. What we find in most companies are, there are a lot of multiple fragmented strategic systems. When I say strategic systems, these are the foundational systems that companies have, like ERP, PLM, LIMS systems, and things of that nature. Key quality processes are being performed in various disconnected systems, including in those pillar systems or manual, spreadsheet, Excel, point solutions. So all of these systems are unique with little or no sharing of the essential quality data. So in an ideal state, these systems are harmonized into pillar systems with ERP being the foundational system. Right? So these systems are integrated, sharing data where needed, and EQMS becomes a pillar managing all the quality processes globally. So what we say is there are three dimensions to the quality processes. So the first dimension is all the processes. Second dimension is functional business units, like audit, QA, procurement, etc. And third is the unique geographic locations where the company might be operating. So now these processes are currently, as I said before, performed in different areas, different silos, if you want to call it. Under the EQMS, we are bringing the three dimensions of the quality together so the organizations get the transparency and the visibility to issues. So with the EQMS, this helps the companies not only solve the issues quickly, because reaction, you want to be rapidly able to find things and react to it, and also it helps them, to analyze, is this problem recurring? Is this problem happening in different area that I could apply the same kind of methodology in another place? So it really gives you that entire landscape, quality landscape for timely and better decision making. So that's really what EQMS is all about.
Okay, well, give us an actual example of kind of EQMS software in action, so that if our viewers aren't really still connecting with what you're saying, they get an idea of how it might work out within an organization.
Sure. Let me give you a couple of examples, and this is easily relatable to any industry. It's not specific to pharma, medical device, or automotive aerospace. So let's say during manufacturing process, you need that a part is not fitting. So this triggers a deviation. So now from the manufacturing system, that trigger generates a deviation record in EQMS, TrackWise EQMS, and you're capturing the related information to the specific part. But once a part number is entered, you want to know, serial number, the lot number, data manufacturer, who the supplier is. So when it's entered into the manufacturing inventory, any other details that you need as part of the process, as part of remediating this issue that you just discovered, right? So this information gets retrieved from a specific table in ERP, or it could be coming from your product master data management record set. So all these things are coming in automatically. So what you're getting at the end is everything is tied together, and you are getting it in a very rapid, quick manner. So here's another example. First one was the manufacturing. So let's consider an example from a customer related, right? So here's a customer or a consumer calling customer support or field service, and they're taking an intake of the complaint. Let's say it's missing or broken part in the package that they received. So when the customer service person intakes the information, as soon as your customer enters the information or the initial information, it goes into CRM, gets the customer information, it goes into the ERP, get the product information like serial number, date of manufacturer, lot number, all the details. So now you are getting all those things internally inputted coming from the central data source. Now, what is this doing is two things. First, you're getting all the right data correctly, so you don't have to go and look up and bring it and manually enter. And second, you may also right away know that, oh, you know what, this problem is existing for this specific lot number based on this information that we have. So you can actually provide some sort of a triage much quicker instead of waiting around. So again, time is money, you want to remediate quickly. So this is a couple of examples from both ends of the spectrum.
Well, let's talk from a technical point of view here now a little bit, because I know one concern some viewers are going to have is like, look, I have a CRM system, I have an ERP system, I have other systems, document control, and I've got 4 or 5 computer systems already. Are they going to have to trash those in order to bring in an EQMS system, or is there some way that that data that already exists in those systems can be brought into an EQMS system? How does that work?
Good question. Like I said in the opening, almost every customer, they have those pillar systems, those critical systems like you mentioned just a while ago, ERP, PLM, LIMS, doc management, whatnot. And they all do their own things, and they don't really handle the quality in a centralized manner. So what we do is we leverage the information in that, and we connect to that, so there is no rip and replace scenario here. So EQMS really connects to those, get the information appropriately, and handle the end-to-end process of managing the quality. And we actually complement those systems as opposed to replace any of those systems. They are all cohabitating in the enterprise environment.
Now, what about reportage? I mean, you have an article that's actually, I believe, it's in today's issue of Quality Digest.
Yep.
And one of the things you talk about there is one of the things you get from an EQMS is the ability to maybe generate reports that wouldn't have been possible before, because you're able to bring in data from different types of sources and generate unique reports that perhaps weren't possible before?
Correct. Because we are think about it like we are sitting amongst the other systems, other critical systems, and what you want is you want to have the full visibility. You spoke about before about mid management must have the visibility, not only just the end users or the top management, right? So we want to be able to pull the right information, right data from the different systems, because that's what EQMS is doing. And as part of it, you want to generate the outputs as well that is relevant information that is relevant to the user. So if it is a mid-level manager, they want to know about specific product coming to a site XYZ, and they want to know about what's going on, what the trend is, how the fix has been going, or even how are we doing compared to the benchmark versus our current performance. All those information is coming from different areas, and you want to be able to present that output in a usable manner so they can make that impactful decisions in a timely and efficient way. So that's what we always say, there's a lot of data, but the data is totally useless unless you can provide the useful information out to the right people.
Okay, well, Mohan, thank you. We also have a webinar coming up on that's going to be talking about this topic in just a little bit.
Yes.
Using analytics to improve quality in the supply chain. That's coming up next Tuesday, February 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and in which we're going to be talking about these issues and more, I'm assuming.
Yes, we will be covering EQMS and enterprise analytics and reporting and all the good and fun stuff.
Okay. Well, Mohan Panadurai from Sparta Systems, I thank you for showing up on our show this morning, and I guess we'll see you next Tuesday.
Well, we'll see you then. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mohan.
Thanks, Mohan. Yes.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. And all of you out there, if you haven't already, be sure to sign up for that. There's a link right in Mohan's article, I believe, where you can go and sign up for that. And we've been sending out some e-blasts too, and there'll be another one on Monday. So look out for that in your email inbox, and make sure if you're interested in this topic, which is Pretty broad at this point. A lot of people
Yep.
certainly need to understand that, and within the supply chain, which is always a concern. Make sure you check out that webinar again. That's going to be next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern.
That's right.
All right. Well, now I'm going to turn to an article that I'm going to cover right now from one of our writers, David Mule, titled "What is Business Continuity Management?" ? And again, that's written by David Mule. That appeared in Wednesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. The focus here is on a standard-based approach to BCM, Business Continuity Management. And for that, we really necessarily need to turn to ISO 22301, which was created by the International Organization for Standardization, expressly to deal with issues surrounding BCM, Business Continuity Management. As with so many things in our world today, especially within the world of quality, for any of us who are quality professionals, this standard helps you deal with risk. Risk is really what we're talking about. You mentioned it in a news item from MIT Sloan, this understanding of risk and how to manage it. Well, that's really what this standard helps to deal with, is this idea that managers particularly need to understand from a systems perspective what risk is, how they're going to deal with it, how they're going to recover in the case of whatever may happen. It's not, and this is really interesting, and I think the point needs to be made, this is not just a glorified emergency response plan. That's really much too narrow a definition for ISO 22301, much less for BCM itself. It's not just responding to emergencies. It's really understanding your business and all the inputs of your business and how you're going to continue to, for whatever may happen, or just continue to improve. In fact, ISO 22301 provides a framework, and it's a really good framework to do a few things specifically around the topic of risk. It allows you to catalog risk. It allows you to prioritize risk. It allows you to assess risk aversion, and it also allows you to develop a process mitigation for risk, assign resources for preventing and recovering from any disruptions, and having a highest to a lowest priority on that scale. So it almost feels actuarial in nature. If you're familiar with the insurance industry or actuarial tables, it almost feels like this is a process of assigning kind of numbers to these different things and saying, well, we think this is going to happen, it's likely that this would be this, so this would be the amount of disruption, so we're going to focus on that. That is a part of it, but again, it's a heck of a lot broader than that. BCM, as managed through ISO 22301, provides a framework for proactivity, insight, or maybe even foresight. I think foresight is really a key thing here, because if you understand really well through the process of registering to ISO 22301 and going through audits, and you understand all of your processes and understand what you're doing and how what you're doing affects customers, you're going to be able to get that insight and the foresight to look at things that may happen in the future and deal with them as they may or hopefully won't happen, but if they do happen, you'll be able to deal with those things.
I was going to say, what a lot of people don't realize is that as you start to look at your processes, you're actually starting to do a preventive thing, because you're beginning to see, wow, we didn't realize that we were at risk, or that the odds of this particular problem happening were so great, and that the consequences were so dire. And as you start to look at that and you spot these ahead of time, well, yeah, part of what you're going to do is your risk mitigation should it happen, but also you're going to be going, well, wait a minute, we don't want this to happen to begin with, and you're going to be starting to put things in place to maybe prevent that item from happening.
And say, well, maybe we don't need to do that at all. Maybe what we're doing that's risky is something that we can just chuck, or maybe there's a better way of doing it. I mean, this is really, again, it's a systems approach to improving your organization using an understanding of risk and continuity management as a framework in which to enter that. Really what this is an understanding that managers need to drive, and managers need to be at the wheel in this and work through all the scenarios that may happen. And we talk about black swans a lot and things that rarely happen. Well, black swans are a lot more common, it seems like, than they used to be with things like weather and certainly security issues at retailers and other places where a lot of credit card information may be at risk. Technology and the force of the world, the flow of history, is making black swans seem like they're coming down the pond a lot more than they used to in the past. So yeah, a lot grayer than they were too. So I think the understanding that managers need to drive this, and organizations need to have managers in place who do those processes is through ISO 22301 really is a key thing here. And again, understanding all the things that your business can and can't do. David Mule uses a scenario of a wallet where he says, well, think about, how long it would take you to recover if your wallet or your purse or your cell phone got stolen or got lost. All the stuff that's there. Do you have a system in place to recover very quickly rather than take days or weeks? Well, think about it from a perspective of a large organization with millions of wallets and purses and cell phones. I mean, how much more complex, how much more important is it to be out in front of anything that could happen in terms of recovering? And we referred to a specific case on the show a couple of weeks ago. Paul Naismith wrote an article about security fraud and security risk with credit card information. And he referred back to the Tylenol case from about 3 decades ago. That really was a very early example of the right way to do BCM. Because what Tylenol did, I think, which was Johnson & Johnson, I think, what J&J did, was really get out in front of it by working with people like us, the media, to get out in front of the story and explain what happened, explain what they were doing about it, and use that as a conduit to their customers. That understanding too about how you communicate, how you use media to communicate to customers, is also a big part of ISO 22301.
We have a comment that just came in from a viewer. If we can get that up. Mm-hmm. Recently, a software. I think this looks like an example. Mm-hmm. Recently, a software company had a key employee quit. When they did, they erased their entire hard drive. Ooh. Years of customer invoices and other important documents were lost. Took over a year to rebuild most of it, and no telling how much was really lost. Again, not something someone would expect to happen, but had 22301 been in place, it would have taken a matter of a day, and things would have been back to normal. This is a great example. You talk about your wallet being stolen. Yeah. That's kind of the organizational equivalent of your wallet being stolen.
Yeah, and what they're talking about there is those underlying systems that allow you to recover that information quickly. So it's not just on one hard drive. I mean, you would look at that and think, well, gosh, this is a pretty key, this is a pretty key thing that we're dealing with that we don't have backed up maybe. And one person could really hurt us if that person were to leave or to be malicious maybe in leaving. It sounds like that was kind of a malicious circumstance.
Oops, accidentally erased my hard drive.
But I mean, you know what? I mean, you shouldn't be in a position where you're liable to be hit by that kind of maliciousness. You should have underlying systems where you can back that stuff up, have it in the cloud, whatever it may be, where you don't have to deal with that, and that shouldn't have to be part of recovery from.
And by the way, really quick, this actually ties back into the resiliency thing. Remember, they talked about efficiency versus fragility.
Yeah.
The more efficient you are, the leaner you are, including redundancies and backups, which aren't very efficient.
Well, yeah, and
but they're resilient, and so there's always that trade-off.
There's that spectrum. I mean, we all want to be lean, and I don't want to get too far afield. We all want to be lean. We all want to not have too many redundancies because they're not efficient. But in the case of BCM, redundancies oftentimes can save your bacon. So
save your bacon, yeah, exactly.
You have to balance those things and understand. I think that whole thing about rating the priorities of risk and saying, well, some of this is so important, some of it would handicap us so much if we had a disruption that, we've got to go to the other side of the spectrum and be overly cautious in terms of duplication and redundancy. So, good.
All a balancing game.
Yeah, it's good food for thought. Read that article from David Muell again, right down below the player.
Interesting tweet of the week. We were just talking about an ISO standard, ISO 22301, and ISO puts out a lot of standards.
They sure do.
And some you probably don't realize. And here is this tweet of the week is, if we can put that up, from Suresh Narodi. Didn't realize there's a draft ISO standard on safety requirements for personal care robots. ISO 13842, actually it's 13482, transposed there, 13482 2014. Which is exactly what he says. It is an ISO draft standard for safety of personal care robots, and it covers, did we do a slide for that, what it covers?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, here we go. This is straight from ISO, from the draft description. ISO 13482 2014 specifies requirements and guidelines for the inherently safe design, protective measures, and information for use of personal care robots, in particular, the following 3 types of personal care robots. The mobile servant robot. How come I don't have one of those? The physical assistant robot. One of those too.
Yeah.
And the person carrier robot. I want one of those.
Yeah.
That's right. So in case you don't want your Roomba to be, vacuuming up your cat or you. So I guess it's important to have one of those. So there you go. That's the tweet of the week.
Somewhere Isaac Asimov is smiling,
He
saying
sure
thank
is.
you for helping out with robots. All right.
Thanks, Suresh.
Well, that's our show. But before we close, I'd like to offer our thanks to this week's sponsor, Olympus America. Discover another dimension in microimaging and metrology with test, measurement, inspection, and imaging instruments designed for high precision quality control and R&D. Olympus engineered solutions enhance quality and productivity in industrial markets around the world. For more information, click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of the video screen right down there.
That's right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and also thank to Mohan Panardurai from Sparta for joining us also and giving us some good information on enterprise quality management software.
Yep, don't forget about the webinar next
And
Tuesday.
the webinar, February 25th. For sure, you guys want to attend that if EQMS is in your future. So thanks to all of you for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
That's right. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then.
So long.
Bye.
Thank you.